Hello, Gio.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Philip. Great to be here again. Ready to get the conversation going. Great to see you.
Yeah, it is definitely. Today we have prepared a topic about the abyss behind the billable hour and hourly rates. So, what is your general opinion and approach and the experience in that specific realm, especially when we are talking about the agency business, development companies, IT companies, and complementary activities and expertise-based businesses?
Yeah, I think that's I think it's a mindset shift that you have to go through depending on your background and because somebody who's maybe been exposed to businesses or has grown up right in a family business or has a different type of experience may understand the aspect of right of not going towards the billable hours, right? Uh but person like myself who came from a corporate background, right, where everything was sort of billable, in the corporate world, it was everything was like per hour. So you sort of keep that mindset of everything per hour. But then when I shifted into business mode, I really ended up understanding the misconception of right billable hours versus actually charging for specific project, right, or for a specific service, and not tying it to hours, tying it to value, tying it to results, right? So I learned that in business. In the corporate world it was different, so I had to get used to that and understand that it's a change and shift my mindset. Like, hey, I'm not working on hours, I'm working on results. I'm working by the results I'm going to provide, and I said I'm going to do this and I'm going to work towards doing that, and I'm going to handle my own schedule. The client just worries about, hey, stay relaxed, just wait on the results. We're going to do what we got to do, and that's it, and not worry about the whole billable hours. Because like you said, I know in some industries it's still very strong, right? Because I know in some industries, for example, in certain aspects of pharmaceutical companies and manufacturing, service providers still, manufacturers, um, do pay out POs by the hour, right? They'll authorize a PO, but they're still registering your hours. So it depends on the industry, but I do think for certain industries and a lot of people, they're not taking an advantage of the opportunity to actually go more based on results on a overall price versus going the billable hours route.
Yeah, it's practically the same case within globally speaking about expertise-based businesses, as you mentioned, and in agency world. A lot of agencies are still working on hourly rates, billable hours, and there is, as you mentioned, and that is a good point. There is a one big misconception. Companies are making a calculation based on 100% of billable hours. It's impossible. Analysis in expertise-based businesses, as I know from 2021, roughly, the billable hours were estimated on 36 to 37% from overall. So that messes up the initial calculation by default. Plus, the add-on to the problem is the fact that when you have senior staff, they will for sure do their magic in smaller amount of time. So practically, you're punishing your company for doing job adequately. And in that specific case in realm, it is quite possible that your junior staff, which simply need and their activities demand more time, they'll be the most profitable for the business, which is opposite of logic. So, as you said, the point is in creating the value and being paid for the results delivered, not based on the hourly rates. And also, what I want to emphasize, which is pretty much crazy, especially in the expertise-based business, somebody who has 30 years of experience, for example, in finances, taxation, whatever, and they know all the crazy details, and they're able to help in 1 hour frame to some company and save them $1 million. But they will be paid on an hourly base. It's crazy. It doesn't have sense at all. So that is the point. It is a paradigm shift. One thing to mention is important. Working on an hourly rate as kind of a baseline, as the baseline model approaching to business, it is okay. But long term, there is a big impact on profitability, potential for scaling your business, and your service is becoming a commodity, which is the opposite of logic if we are talking about expertise-based businesses and what you can as a professional and truly create and generate as the value for our clients and customers.
No, I like what you said there, Philip. I think that's a great point, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. It's a real good point. Like basically, by going billable hours, you're shooting yourself in the foot, right?
Yeah.
You're basically shooting yourself in the foot because um basically you're telling, right, if your people are efficient, if your team is efficient, they work quickly and do what they had to do before you expected. Well, now you've removed potential revenue from your business, right? Because if they did it earlier than they were supposed to, or they were efficient, like you said, and they're a more senior person, not only did they do it quicker, but now, like you said, they're getting paid less to be more efficient because they did it in less time. So it's like you said, it's counterproductive when you start to look at it that way. So I think that's a very good point you brought there. And then, like you said, you have a junior or less experienced team member, and then they take a bit longer. So in theory, you could say they're not as efficient because they don't have the experience yet. So they're taking longer, but then, like you said, they're getting paid more because they're putting more hours in, yet they're getting paid more to be less effective or less efficient because they're actually taking longer to get that right, to get that task done. So that's I like that point you brought up, because it actually shows some the limitations that come up when you start to go just that billable route.
Yeah. And the thing we mentioned, you mentioned, and afterwards me also, is the profitability realm. By doing business, providing your professional service based on hourly rates and billable hours, you are top capping your earnings. So simple example is, okay, if you have in your hands 100 hours, let's say the billable is 40%, meaning 40 hours you can bill to your client and customer, and you're being paid per hour. That's it. That's your top cap. And what happens next? If you engage with new clients and customers, you're onboarding new projects, you need to employ more people. Why? Because you're being paid based on hourly rate. So your existing resources, no matter the skill and level, cannot do the stuff. So that is generally the problem of that specific paradigm. As mentioned previously, as the initial start and being paid that way, it's okay. But long term, if you are looking for the perspective of building your business, expanding your business, scaling, going international, whatever you want, billable hours and hour rates are not good anymore. Especially what is happening. I'll give an example on, for example, business coaches and consultants. They are practically solopreneurs. They have a major problem. If they have some amount of billable hours being paid per hourly rate, that is a top cap. They cannot exceed that specific amount in any case. So it is important to embed something more, in the end, creative, because there are creative ways and better ways to be paid for the service you provide, and definitely leave your service expertise service as a commodity behind it, because it's becoming a part of the past. And that is what I'm definitely suggesting to all expertise-based businesses and company which provide those type of services, no matter we are talking about business coaches and consultants, development companies, IT companies, etc. Because in the end of line, I understand that not for all of them paradigm shift is easy, but it is kind of mandatory if you want to go up in scale.
No, I agree. And I think like you mentioned, the billable hours aspect is you're capping yourself, you're limiting your potential to earn more. But also I see it from this point of view also, Philip, is that you're basically assigning a specific number, an hourly rate number, and to any problem you solve, which I think doesn't make sense, right? So you're saying this is what I, right, which is what I cost per hour. Let's just say it's $50 an hour, just for an example. And you say, okay, it's $50 an hour, and you say, so you're telling the other person, well, no matter the problem you have, right, you just got to pay 50 an hour, and I'm going to work on solving that problem. Versus in my head, now that I've had that mentality shift, it's no, it doesn't matter. The billable, there shouldn't be a billable hour. It should be focused on the problem I'm solving. So I think when people start to think that way, it's like, okay, how valuable or how painful is this problem for that client? Because the more complex and the more difficult that problem is to solve, what does that mean? That means there's more value on both ends. That's more value for the client because you're solving a very complex problem that they can't deal with, or it's going to consume a lot of their time and energy. And you have the value for yourself, which is now that you can provide a solution or solutions to that problem, you can charge based on the value, based on the actual complexity of that problem, versus focusing on just the billable hour aspect, which, like you said, just adds limitations to your potential to grow. And also, I think it adds limitations to the type of services you can provide and the problems you can take on. Because if you think it's right, because at the end of the day, if there's a person that's at $50 an hour and all of a sudden they're confronted by a complex problem, that person, if they don't have the right mindset, they can say, you know what, I'm not going to take this job because they're going to pay me only 50 an hour, or I could raise my rate a little bit, but still it won't be enough to cover all the things I'm going to have to do within, right, to create that solution. So I think once you stop focusing on, like you said, the billable hours, and you start, in my opinion, you start focusing on how the problems and how you can solve them and what the value is, how valuable is the solution to that problem, then it actually makes a lot more sense, because now my pricing is according to the complexity of the situation, and I base my prices off of how complex the solution will be, because the more complex then means the more resources, means the more I will have to charge, and the more I will generate at the end of the day.
Yeah. Good point. And also an additional layer to that is a differentiating factor. So if you as a service provider in parallel with competition stand before some potential client. So the potential client doesn't know the difference. The only parameter they will be making their decision and what is their base is hourly rate. If you've defined your price based on hourly rate, so that doesn't have anything with quality, service delivery, are you fast, are you slow, whatever. No, only an hourly rate. So that is also one important thing and differentiating factor as a unique selling and unique value proposition in the conversation value and the end of line. And also what I wanted to mention, which always makes me laugh, and that is one of the indicators where you can see easily how system is broken. For example, business coach, consultant, he's being so happy when he says, oh, I am being paid $500 per hour. Awesome. How many hours you've sold this month? Several of them. Okay. And what was the value of solution you provided? What was the overall value of the problem you resolved? It was roughly 2.5 million. Okay. Do you see the problem there? Yeah, when you put it that way, I have a problem. Not when I put it that way. It's a problem. It's a problem by default, because people are so happy raising their hourly rate, but that is not guiding them towards the good profitability. The point is, as mentioned previously, in shifting the paradigm. Simple example: Industry 4.0 company. majority of them are also being paid on an hourly rate. They're being paid for some hardware, the software implementation similar. Why they are not implementing the pricing structure like this? Okay, implementation costs are this amount, and you'll pay us the percentage of all savings on a monthly, quarterly, or yearly basis. That way, you'll easily exceed the initial value, you'll easier convert and engage, and you won't be one of the service providers. You will be a solution maker and a partner of the company, which actually created an amazing value for them. And you are opening a new potential opportunities for additional activities, strengthening the position in the company in terms of business cooperation and overall scope. That is something which is definitely a thing which could be an interesting point to think about while defining the pricing strategy, the approach, and thinking heavily on business and business profitability.
No, I think that's great when people have that aha moment, right? Like the person you mentioned that you were speaking to, that aha moment where it's like, oh, wait a second, wow, I thought I was actually doing great. I thought I actually was right, 500 an hour. I thought I came out winning. And then all of a sudden when you right, confront them with a different perspective, now it's like, wait a second, oh, you're you're right. I actually lost more than what I gained. Because when you do the calculations, like you said, that's why it's important, these conversations, because now if you're a person who's been doing billable hours, I would suggest, right, go over this conversation that Filip and I have just had and look into your billable hours and look at the type of problems you're solving. I would say look into the type of problems you're solving, and are they very complex? Are you limiting your potential revenue? Maybe you are. Maybe you're leaving a lot on the table. So you have to really look into that. And I think it starts in the mindset shift, like we were talking about. It starts with you having to understand the perception of the value you provide and how you're going to present it. That presentation piece is very important, and not, like you said, limiting ourselves to a billable hour when we could provide substantial value and then not have to do the whole billable hour situation, which makes things more complex and limits, in some cases, in a lot of cases, limits your growth, limits scalability, and limits the type of solutions you can provide depending on the industry. But yeah, I think it was a great conversation, Filip. Yeah,
I agree. And yeah, the kind of final thought and moment would be that doing that paradigm shift, it's applicable on any expertise-based business. There are no obstacles and specific focus on some of the business niches. All expertise-based businesses can implement other pricing tactic, implement value-based pricing, result-driven, in similar compared to the billable hour and hourly rates. So everybody can do it.
There we go. It's just a matter of sitting down and looking at it from a different angle. And yeah, let's see. Hopefully we have some people who actually start to get some of that money that they were leaving on the table, and now they change their structure a bit, and hopefully they get some good news and start to see a lot more revenue come in and be able to solve a lot more complex solutions. So yeah, great conversation, Filip.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for your time, and yeah, catching up soon, Joe.
Take
See
care.
you. Bye.